Not yet?
Yeah.
We play the Madanga?
Oh, you're in class if you want? Oh, okay, after. What, after that? Oh, really? Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, because that's what I needed to discuss. We have to change the, because nothing what? Common email, all of us, we have to change, sign in for the.
You have cartels?
So everything has to be one.
Yes, that's why I need more direction.
I know.
But if someone just sends me a link.
Because she sent it to you like today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then I asked for clarification.
The pink string ones or the blue?
I said,
I prefer the white string.
I don't know what you're talking
what?
about.
The whitish blue string ones.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
These ones?
The white cartels. I can't see. I think it's those ones.
Yeah, I agree with
Thank you very much. You got a piece of orange spread on your head.
What?
You have a piece of orange spread on your head.
Oh, Jack.
Jarada Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Manadari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Manadari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Manadari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana So, Tara, that the Srimad is divine grace. Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki. I am Vishnu Paramahamsa Prabhupada So, Tara, that the Srimad. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki. Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki jai. Chaitra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Ganga Mai ki, Yamuna Mai ki, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Ajnanatamarandasya Ginanjana Shalakaya Chakshurinmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurue Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Utaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vishubhana Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namane Nashesha Kleshana Paramananda Daine Vanchakalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mare Kabando Matsangin Madguru Madmadana Madnistaraka Madbhagya Madananda Namostute Asaru Saru Tadayan Atini Chotatakara Hanamuncha Karachinmam Premna Ritkatayos Pura Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritta Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nastapreshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Utama Shloke Bhaktir Babadina Ishtaki. Hare Krishna and welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we're reading from Canto 5, the creative impetus, Chapter 1, the activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. And this is prose, so I'll just read it and we won't repeat it. What?
Friday the 16th.
Is it Friday the 16th? I usually don't say the date, but it's Friday the 16th.
Yeah.
We're going to do, it's prose, so I'll read it, there's no need to repeat. Ata Bhagavan Adi Deva Etasya Gunafisa Gargasya Paribrim Hanunudyana Vyavashita Shakala Jagad Abhi Prayat Mayonir Akila Nigama Nijagana Pariveshtita Swabhavanadavatara. Translation. Word for word. Ata, thus, ha, indeed, Bhagavan, the most powerful, Adi Deva, the first demigod, Etasya, of this universe, Guna Visargasya, the creation of the three modes of material nature, Paribrimana, the welfare, Anudyana, always thinking of, Vyavashita, known, Shakala, whole, Jagat, of the universe, Abhiprayaha, by whom the ultimate purpose, Atma, the supreme self, Yonihi, whose source of birth, Akila, all, Nigama, by the Vedas, Nijagana, by personal associates, Pariveshtitaha, being surrounded, Swabhavanat, from his own abode, Avatatara, descended. I just want to clarify, I wasn't trying to negate what you said. I just didn't understand the context, so I apologize if I was.
I didn't hear you.
Because I wasn't trying to negate what you said about the date. I just didn't understand the context, and so I was wondering what you meant by that.
Yeah, don't you usually say the date?
I don't usually, but some devotees do. So I felt like I kind of negated what you said, so I just wanted to make sure it's good.
No worries.
Okay.
I shouldn't have interrupted.
No worries. Thank you very much. I should start doing that. So appreciate it.
You don't know, like 50 years from now, someone's going to be like, when?
I was gonna say the same thing.
Prabhupada always said the day. It's
I
true.
think it's written down when you go on YouTube. It does say.
Yeah.
So, does accompany.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Translation. I'm so incoherent most of the time. I don't know what day of the week. I barely know, So.
I always check the day before and write it on my notes. But sometimes I write it wrong.
Translation. Sri Shukadev Goswami continued, the first created being and most powerful demigod in the universe is Lord Brahma, who is always responsible for developing universal affairs. Born directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he dedicates his activities to the welfare of the entire universe, for he knows the purpose of the universal creation. This supremely powerful Lord Brahma, accompanied by his associates and the personified Vedas, left his own abode in the highest planetary system and descended to the place of Prince Priyavrata's meditation. Please repeat. Shukadev Goswami continued. The first created being and most powerful demigod in this universe is Lord Brahma, who is always responsible for developing universal affairs. Born directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he dedicated his activities to the welfare of the entire universe. For he knows the purpose of the universal creation. This supremely powerful Lord Brahma, accompanied by his associates and the personified Vedas, left his own abode in the highest planetary system and descended to the place of Prince Priyavrata's meditation. Purport. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Self, Atma, is the source of everything, as explained in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmad Yasya Yataha. Because Brahma was born directly from the Lord Vishnu, he is called Atma Yoni. He is also called Bhagavan. Although generally Bhagavan refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu or Lord Krishna, sometimes great personalities such as demigods like Lord Brahma, Narada, or Lord Shiva are also addressed as Bhagavan because they carry out the purpose of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Brahma is called Bhagavan because he is the secondary creator of this universe. He is always thinking how to improve the situation of the conditioned souls who have come to the material world to enjoy material activities. For this reason, he disseminates the Vedic knowledge throughout the universe for everyone's guidance. Vedic knowledge is divided into two parts, Pravritti Marg and Nivritti Marg. Nivritti Marg is the path of negating sense enjoyment, and Pravritti Marg is the path by which the living entities are given a chance to enjoy and at the same time are directed in such a way that they can go back home, back to Godhead. Because ruling over this universe is a great responsibility, Brahma must force many Manus in different ages to take charge of universal affairs. Under each Manu, there are different kings who also execute the purpose of Lord Brahma. It is understood from the previous explanations that the father of Dhruva, Maharaj King Uttanapad, ruled over the universe because his elder brother, Priyavrata, practiced austerity from the very beginning of his life. Thus, up to the point of the Prachetas, the kings of the universe were all descendants of Uttanapad Maharaj. Since there were no suitable kings after the Prachetas, Swayambhuva Manu went back to the Gandhamandam hill to bring back his eldest son Priyavrata, who was meditating there. Swayambhuva Manu requested Priyavrata to rule over the universe. When he refused, Lord Brahma descended from the supreme planetary system, known as Satyaloka, to request Priyavrata to accept the order. Lord Brahma did not come alone. He came with other great sages like Marichi, Atraya, and Vashtista to convince Priyavrata that it was necessary for him to follow the Vedic injunctions and accept responsibility of ruling over the world. Lord Brahma also brought with him personified Vedas, his constant associates. A significant word in this verse is Swabhavanat, indicating that Lord Brahma descended from his very own abode. Every demigod has his own abode. Indra, the king of the demigods, has his own abode, as do Chandra, the lord of the moon planet, and Surya, the predominating deity of the sun planet. There are many millions of demigods, and the stars and planets are their respective homes. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Yanti Deva Vrata Devan Those who worship the demigods go to the different planetary systems. There are different planetary systems. Lord Brahma's abode, the highest planetary system, is called Satyaloka, or sometimes Brahmaloka. Brahmaloka usually refers to the spiritual world. The abode of Lord Brahma is Satyaloka, but because Lord Brahma resides there, it is also sometimes called Brahmaloka. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadini Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschatadeshta. So, speaking of the glorious activities of Priyavrata Maharaj, one of my favorite parts of the Bhagavatam actually, and the exalted position of Brahma. And in regards to Brahma, it should be understood that there are two purposes of this universe. And to understand the purpose of something helps us to utilize it properly, correct? There's one story Kashtuba Prabhu tells in how he was in India and the lady thought she had a computer, but she had a toaster. He had to tell her that's actually a toaster, not a computer. Sorry. So it's important to understand the purpose of what we have. And so the universe has two purposes. Anybody know those two purposes?
Right there.
What are the two purposes of the universe?
How do you go back home to Godhead?
That's one purpose.
You smash.
Use the place to work out our karma.
That's close. That's part of the first purpose. Yes, Prabhu.
Isn't it in one verse in the Bhagavatam, which I'm assuming you're referencing, that one's for, like she said, for going back home, but the other's for sense gratification?
Yeah, he had it first, but you got it too.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, to fulfill material desires and to help us go back home, back to Godhead. So there's two purposes of the universe, and because of those two purposes, there's the two margs, the Pravriti Marg and the Nivriti Marg. Pravriti Marg is a means by which one can engage in religious life and have sense gratification that way, while simultaneously purifying themselves so they can go back to Godhead. And the Nivriti Marg is the path of renunciation, wherein one expedites that process of going back to Godhead by engaging fully in the devotional service of the Lord. Of the two, the Nivriti Marg is recommended, because the Pravriti Marg is explained by Krishna to be for those who are less intelligent, because this is the process of worshiping the demigods and all the Vedic rituals Krishna calls the flowery language of the Vedas. And so we find that even devotees also utilize some of the Pravriti Marg elements, because we have, material facilities such as Varnashram, marriage, these types of things. They fall under the category of Pravriti Marg because they are secondary elements to our devotional service by which one can situate themselves nicely so they can practice Krishna consciousness and come to the stage of Nivriti Marg, where they are renouncing and they're fully dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In regards to this, Krishna is speaking of the various processes of elevation given in the Vedas and the various Vedic rituals. Krishna gives this verse, Bhogaishvarya Prashaktanam Te Aparita Chetasam Vivasyatmika Buddhihi Samudal Navadiyate. Krishna explains that in the minds of those who are too attached to material sense enjoyment and opulence and are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination to perform devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. So it takes a lot of determination to be Krishna conscious. It's not a light thing. Krishna consciousness requires immense amount of determination. What does determination mean? Yeah, it means those things. But when you break the word determination down, there's this word terminus, which means an end. So determination means we have that end in mind, and we're focused on that end. Vivasyatmika buddhi, this one-pointed intelligence in which we understand the end. And so it's so funny because we identify with this body and this lifetime, and we make so many plans for this lifetime so that we can get the end right. But this is, it can be said similar to if you're flying back to the spiritual world on Garuda and you see beautiful Apsara girls of the, Swarga Lok, and then you jump off. Right? No, it's similar, right? We have this direct path back to Godhead. We know Krishna. We know, but then there's so many distractions, correct? And we think, oh, let me just run here for a bit, and then at the end, I'll circle back around and chant Hare Krishna, I'll go back to Godhead. This is necessary for some, for most, but we should understand that the real goal, the determination, which is coming from understanding that goal of Krishna consciousness, that I want to serve Krishna, I want Krishna, I want nothing but Krishna. So Priyavrata Maharaj understood this very clearly. He understood very clearly that this world is Mrityu Loka. It's a land of death, birth, death, old age, and disease. And everything I obtain in this world is going to be removed from my consciousness. So he understood this, and he therefore decided to engage in austerity rather than taking up his kingdom. And so, with that being said, still he entered into the kingly order and ruled very nicely as a service. So this is the line that we can draw. And so we have another great example of a leader here in Krishna consciousness in Lord Brahma. He's the great leader of our universe. And a genuine leader is in pursuance of this goal to help people become Krishna conscious. That's what a genuine leader does. He helps facilitate everybody's Krishna consciousness. If that is your consciousness, if that is your understanding in life, then you will pass over so many difficulties. I study some philosophy because it helps me to give classes and make references. And there's this element of philosophy in terms of like manliness, you can say, and how the people that are idolized in real life, like Arjuna, Yudhishthira, and then in our stories, like we have the Lord of the Rings, you have Aragorn, there's so many characters in which there are idyllic men. And the common principle is that these men have principles. And the genuine principle for living a life of success is to have this understanding that there's a principle. What is that principle? That principle is that a man should be willing to sacrifice his own happiness for the happiness of others in terms of bringing them to Krishna consciousness. In the Western world, we have the prime example in Lord Jesus Christ. One is going to make a sacrifice to help others become Krishna conscious. And in this way, this is the ultimate kind of manifestation of the Nivriti Marg, that I'm going to deny myself for the purpose of spreading the Krishna conscious movement to the best degree I can. So Lord Brahma, he builds this entire universe with this purpose in mind, that I'm going to put sense enjoyment in there, but it's going to stab you and hurt you every chance it can get. And there's a verse I think it's in the 3rd or 2nd canto, where it's described that the very first thing Lord Brahma created was the suffering and the illusion for the living entities, so that when living entities try to engage in sense enjoyment, they become totally bewildered, totally hurt, totally devastated every single time. There's this, he put that in there because if you just get sense gratification without any pain, what would make you want to go back to Godhead? Right? So there's natural pain built into the universe. Lord Brahma put it in there so that we can realize, I'm tired of this nonsense. I'm tired of it. So there's another point I want to bring up here, just so the devotees who are coherent of what's going on in the Bhagavatam can understand and have that clear. So we were hearing in the whole 4th canto about Maharaj Uttanapad's line, starting with Dhruva and ending with the Prachetas. And then all of a sudden, now we're hearing about Priyavrata. So what happened to Maharaj Uttanapad's line? Why did it stop? Okay, it's an important point because it helps us understand what's going on, that this is all logical. It's not that we just switched gears completely from the prachetas and just went into Priyavrata, and there's no connection. There's a point behind it. That who was the son of the prachetas? No, Priyavrata is the brother of Uttanapad. He's the son of Swayambhuva Manu. So the son of the prachetas was Daksha Maharaj, the second incarnation of Daksha Maharaj. And so Daksha Maharaj, when he was born, because the trees, they gave that daughter from the trees, and they gave the daughter. And so then the daughter of the trees was given to the prachetas to pacify them, and the prachetas begot Daksha in this girl. And so Daksha was born with all his potency and all his power and all his desire to be a progenitor. So what did Daksha do? Rather than take up the kingdom, Daksha went and performed austerities for a long, long time. And we hear about that in the 6th canto. Daksha offers the Hamsagulya prayers and these beautiful prayers to become empowered to create. So because Daksha left to perform austerities, there was no king, because the prachetas were the last in the line of Maharaj Uttanapad. So Swayambhuva Manu appeared to bring back Maharaj Priyavrata and establish him as the king. And so a new line began from Swayambhuva Manu. And that line continued on all the way until you come to the Chakshusha Manu. Chakshusha Manu is the Manu before this Manu. And in the Chakshusha Manu, Daksha comes back, and then Daksha does his famous thing where he has 10,000 children, sends them off. Narada Muni turns them all into sannyasis. Had 100,000 children. They all turn into sannyasis. He curses Narada Muni. And then Daksha decides, I'm going to have 60 daughters, because Narada Muni's not going to try and make the daughters renounced. So he has 60 daughters, and the majority of those daughters were given to Kasapya Muni. And so these wives of Kasapya Muni then became basically in the world we live in today, we're all descendants of Kasapya Muni and from Daksha. So Dhruva Maharaj is our great grandfather. Good news. It's a fact. But so that's why Priyavrata is being spoken about, because Daksha decided, I'm not going to become king. I'm going to go perform austerities so I can be a progenitor. And so there was no king, and so Priyavrata was brought in to become the king. And so from the point of the prachetas until the point of the Chakshusha Manu, where Daksha has this, immense child-making process thing he does, then at that point, we're back into the line of Uttanapad. So even right now, our current Manu is in that line. So that's an important thing to understand.
Is there a test on this?
No, there is. There is at some point. If you take Bhakti Vaibhav, there's a test on it. What's that?
I thought of making a family tree. Is there a family tree?
There is. There's family tree. I think in the back of the 5th canto, there's one. But it's important to understand so we know why we're talking about what we're talking about. Because if we don't know why we're talking about what we're talking about, then it doesn't help us get the nectar and the wisdom out of it. We see there's certain wisdom involved when we understand these things. That why didn't Daksha become king? Because Daksha wanted to perform austerities to do his service. And that's also going to lead us into this understanding that we have to perform austerities before performing service. And this is like super common. It's very common. All the great sadhus did this. We see that in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He did an immense austerity before he manifested the Gaudiya Math. Srila Prabhupada also, he went through his family life, and then for 10 years, or more, he spent chanting and preparing himself for that execution of Krishna consciousness in terms of spreading the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. And there's so many examples of great sadhus doing like this, where they prepare themselves. So Maharaj Priyavrata also is preparing himself. So that the stage in which we are able to perform intense sadhana, that's a very important stage wherein we should take advantage. For instance, the brahmachari life. Brahmachari life is a wonderful blessing, but if it's not taken advantage of, then we're not going to become prepared. So Priyavrata was taking full advantage of his brahmachari ashram. He was very intensely engaging. And there's many other examples of kings who are doing that. So one of the elements of this verse that's being enlivened and shown to us is the power of devotee association. Because Priyavrata Maharaj, by the association of Narada Muni, he was a full renunciate. He had fully given up the concept of enjoying family life, enjoying his material kingdom, opulences, and so forth. So he'd given those things up. And so when Maharaj Manu and Brahma appeared to try to convince him to take up the kingdom, he was not inclined. But because Brahma told him, he became favorable toward the idea. So the beautiful thing here is that when one takes up a material responsibility under the instruction of the spiritual master, one does not become entangled. Yagyartat kamayon yatra, lokayam karmabandha, tadartam karmakonteya, muktasanga samacharaha. That when work should be done as a sacrifice for Vishnu, or else it binds one to this material world. So how do we make work a sacrifice for Vishnu? The real and most powerful way to do that is to work under the instruction of a superior who's in a devotional position. In that way, our work becomes a sacrifice for Vishnu. But if we decide to work outside the purview of the spiritual master's order, outside the purview of the Vaishnava's instruction, what happens is we will become entangled in the fruits of activities because we're attached to that type of work and we're attached to the fruits of that work. And if we don't have that attachment to serving the spiritual master, then we will be entangled. It's as simple as that. And there's a nice, see if I can find it. There's a nice purport for Prabhupada says that here in the Bhagavad Gita. He explains it very nicely. Oh, Krishna Chaitanya. Yeah, here it is. So this is the famous verse. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, Rajaguna Samudbhava, Mahashano Mahapapma, Vidyena Miham Varinam. The Supreme Personality Godhead said, "It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world." So Arjuna asks the famous question, why is one impelled to act even if unwillingly? Krishna says it's lust only. So Prabhupada gives a very nice purport here. He says when a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. Or in other words, the sense of love of Godhead becomes transformed into lust, as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatiated, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity, and it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. So this is a good example here. Prabhupada's being very straightforward that when we know that a situation is entangling and we engage in it anyway, it's lust. And this is why Prabhupada says so many times, to the great dismay of the living entities who are attached to the material world, that there is no love in this world, only lust. And so we can think this is so, when I heard that, I said, this is a horrible philosophy, it's just a horrible, what I thought. But actually, upon meditating on it, we realize that, when we actually become introspective, we realize I'm full of lust. That's the truth. I'm full of the desire to enjoy and not make Krishna enjoy. I have my own plans. And the pure devotee, he's thinking, I only want Krishna's enjoyment. I only want to serve Krishna. I just want Krishna to be happy. Lord Chaitanya says, whether you come before me and embrace me or you break my heart by not being present before me, you're my worshipable Lord unconditionally. So this is love. And that verse is given by Bhaktivinoda Thakur as the quintessential prema.
There's no love in this world?
Just lust.
Just lust. There's love for the devotees and with the devotees, if the devotees have a devotional relationship. That's the love of the guru and the disciple, love of the devotional friends. That's real. But that's based on complete service, no sense gratification. And the spiritual world too, there's, men and women have relationships, but there's no sense gratification. They just engage in kirtan and fly around Vaikuntha. So if we can do that, okay. Wrath is the manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. This is what I was getting at here. This is why it says it's completely necessary to work under the spiritual master and become attached to that service. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting. So how do we have the prescribed method of living and acting? What is that? We rise early, we chant Hare Krishna, we take Krishna Prasadam, we follow 4 regulative principles. There's a prescribed method of living and acting. And that will hold us from these propensities to engage in lust. Then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. And what's that spiritual attachment? I'm attached to Krishna. Because I'm attached to Krishna, I don't want to do these things that are going to take me away from Krishna. I'm so attached to my program of waking up early, worshiping my deity, so attached to that it stops me from doing a lot of stupid stuff. My mind's always saying, do this, do that. But actually, I really don't want to give up this love I have for chanting early, doing these things. That elevates us. So
Things like going to Sprouts at 8:30.
8:30 in the morning and at night.
No, at night.
Both. Yeah, well, anything we do that we get a spiritual taste, we start thinking, I don't want to do things that are going to inhibit that. And that's a principle of devotional service, accepting what is favorable and rejecting what is unfavorable. And that's the spiritual attachment that we develop. So how do we develop that spiritual attachment? What's the process?
Practice.
Hearing and chanting, true. Practicing, true. Sadhu Sangha, associating with devotees, it's important. When you have love, when you really love your guru, when you really love Prabhupada, when you develop some affection, it becomes, there's this element, I want to do something big for you. I want to do something significant. And therefore, I'm willing to let go of this to take on that which I want to do, which is significant. Yes, Prabhu.
Isn't it ultimately though by the higher taste, by getting a higher taste?
Yeah, a higher taste.
We can give up the lower.
Yeah, exactly. The higher attachment, because we get a lot of pleasure from serving Guru and Krishna. But how do we develop that attachment to that higher taste? How do we develop that? Yes, we have to develop a higher taste. So we have to engage in these practices with our full heart and mind. Prabhupada says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever-increasing spiritual bliss. And the living entities are parts and parcels of this spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence, but by misuse of their independence, when their service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give full facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lusty propensities. And when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, living entities begin to inquire about their real position. The inquiry is the beginning of the Vedanta Sutras, wherein it is said, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. One should inquire into the Supreme. And the Supreme is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam as Janmad Yasya Yatonyavad Itaratascha, or the origin of everything is the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the origin of lust is also the Supreme. If therefore lust is transformed into love for the Supreme, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Rama, exhibited his wrath by burning the golden city of Ravana. By doing so, he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Here also in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord induces Arjuna to engage his wrath upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and wrath, when they are employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies. So in this way, one can overcome the propensity to enjoy. So we see that Maharaj Priyavrata, he was actually attached to being detached. But he showed the way of the pure devotee by being attached to Krishna's service when Brahma asked him to be a family man, be a householder, be a king. And he did that service with full enthusiasm. And so in this way, we can transform all of our activities into bhakti by contact with the devotees and by attachment to the spiritual master. We'll find ourselves in a position we come to materially. This is guna and karma. The spiritual master finds us and then engages us appropriately in devotional service, hearing and chanting, and rendering service, wherein we transcend the limited and painful situation of being attached to sense gratification and make whatever situation we're in a facility for bhakti yoga, whether that be the life of a king, life of a kshatriya, life of a family man. In the beginning stage, it's always some lust. But by the process of Krishna consciousness done correctly, one can go beyond that. And so we hear this in the 13th chapter. In the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there's this verse, Purusha prakriti stohi bhankte prakriti jangunam karnam gunasango syad sadasad yoni janmashu. This is the process of how we become conditioned. It's a really powerful verse. When you know how I'm conditioned, you can learn how to uncondition yourself. So Purusha prakriti stohi, that the enjoyer, the living entity, Purusha prakriti stohi, situated in prakriti, the material nature. Purusha prakriti stohi bhankte prakriti jangunan. He is enjoying that which is jangunan, born of the modes of material nature. He's enjoying that which is born of the modes of material nature. Bhankte prakriti jangunan. Karnam guna sango syat. Why? Because he's associating with those modes. Karnam, because sangha sango syat, because he's associating with those modes of nature. So we want to associate with the modes, or do we want to associate with Krishna? How do we avoid associating with the modes?
Associate with Krishna.
Associate with Krishna, yeah, right. Karnam guna sangha syat sadasad yoni janmashu. Therefore, he's taking births in various types of wombs. So we have to understand clearly when I'm in the modes and clearly when I'm in Krishna consciousness. And it can be a trick because sometimes the modes feel nice, especially the mode of passion. The mode of passion is nectar in the beginning and poison in the end. So the trick of the mode of passion is that this is arranged by Krishna. And then, nope, it was arranged by Maya. For your pain, for you to be hurt, to suffer. So this is the process. We don't want to become conditioned by the modes. Therefore, Krishna says, Mam chaya vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahmabhuya yakalpate. The way to be sagunan samatityaitan, the way to be above the modes is to continuously and constantly engage in devotional service without falling down. So what that means is in whatever position we're in, we follow the rules and regulations appropriately. Meaning, okay, we rise early, we chant Hare Krishna, we perform a morning program, we render service, whether that service be to our family or that service be to the temple. We create a devotional atmosphere in that. And in that way, one stays above the modes of material nature. Important factor is you have to hope that those people you are associating with also have the same consciousness, or else you're not in the modes, but they're in the modes, and now you're associating with them, and they're in the modes, and now you're in the modes. That's the process. And now you're in the modes. What's that mean? It means suffering. So ultimately, it has to be understood that Priyavrata was successful because he performed austerity in the beginning of his life. He understood clearly the importance of devotional service. And so he was able to walk through the world completely unaffected. Even actually, he was unaffected, but also we'll hear in the next chapter how Maharaj Agnidra, his son, was slightly materialistic because he was begotten when Maharaj Priyavrata was absorbed in family life. So his son was somewhat materialistic. So even Maharaj Priyavrata was affected, seemingly. There's a Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur gives a purport on that, wherein he says that Maharaj Priyavrata was a pure devotee, but he was so absorbed in this familial conception that his son became like kind of karmakandi. Maybe his grandson, maybe we're speaking of Agnidra. But so he was a very, very good and austere person in the beginning of his situation. And so the famous verse that I think Dhiro Prabhu quotes a lot, Nayam deo deo bhajam niloke kastan kamanarte vid bhujanye tapo divyam putraka yena satvam shudyad yasmin brahma sokyam tvanantam. At Maharaj Rishabdev, he says, don't waste your life. Vid bhujamye, don't be an animal. Rather, tapo divyam putraka yena satvam. You should perform divine austerity by which you become purified and which you attain Brahma Sokyam Tunantam. You attain that happiness which is spiritual and never ending. So the goal of life is not to engage in these material activities, but to engage in the spiritual process of tapo divyam. This tapo divyam, this divine austerity, you will come to this Brahma Sokyam Tunantam, a happiness which never ends. And so that austerity could look different ways, but one of I'll end here. The main element of that austerity is responsibility. We think that, let me just go be in the cave. But we see in Priyavrata Maharaj that the real glory of his devotional service isn't that he was just a yogi. The real glory of his devotional service is that he became a king and engaged the world in Krishna consciousness. And we'll hear about all his glorious activities. That was his glory. Prabhupada could have stayed in Vrindavan, but Prabhupada's glory was that he took responsibility for the whole world and gave them Krishna consciousness. So every devotee is being called to take up some responsibility in Krishna consciousness for others' devotional service and for helping the whole entire Krishna conscious movement, because that will save us from the mode of ignorance. I was speaking to one brilliant brahmachari in Mayapur, and he said that, if you have a lazy brahmachari, they should get married. He said because the solution to the mode of ignorance is the mode of passion. It's the antidote. Yeah. What?
Then there'll be a lazy husband.
That's not. Yeah, it would be bad. We don't want that. Ideally, we're trying to avoid that mode of ignorance. But the point is there's responsibility. So if you're not responsible for your own spiritual life, like Priyavrata was very responsible for his own spiritual life, how could you be responsible for other spiritual lives?
Save yourself first.
You can't. You're going to be completely unable to guide anybody if you're not responsible for your own spiritual life. Especially children. Children, they see what you do. It's like every single thing you do, they see it and they notice it. So if you are very Krishna conscious, they will be very Krishna conscious. But if your conception of Krishna, if you go into the Grihastha ashram as a place to enjoy, they'll see that, he's not actually so serious. What I'm reading here and what I'm seeing in my father or mother is not adding up.
Hypocrisy.
And so, kids pick up on it in a subconscious level, and they will, they'll always do the minimum.
Always do the work.
They'll always do the minimum. They'll always follow if the father does so many good things, they're gonna think that it's okay to do the worst thing he does. So much of the time, So, and that'll be their bar. So it's very important for anybody who's going to be responsible in Krishna consciousness to first take responsibility for themselves and then take responsibility for others in Krishna consciousness. And by doing that, one becomes successful and one makes more advancement that way. So therefore, Maharaj Priyavrata, his glory is that he was a pure devotee. He performed intense devotional service. He took up the position of a king and a father for the sake of Krishna consciousness, and in that way he executed it perfectly. And I think we heard yesterday that this attachment to hearing and chanting is the key element that, we hear about Maharaj Ambarish. He was fully absorbed in hearing and chanting. So anybody who's in that way can become successful. But if we find that we're not absorbed in hearing and chanting, we don't have a strong sadhana program, then we should make that our goal and then move from there by proper association and so forth. So I think we'll stop here. I have more, but we'll stop here for questions, comments. Yes, Chandrika, Sarvakanti.
So you were saying about there is no love. So basically, all the modes of passion, ignorance, and everything is all based on fear. So the only love that there really is transcendental, that comes from Krishna. Is that correct?
Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says it very concisely. He says, or Krishnadas Kaviraj says it concisely, that basically lust means for me and love means for Krishna. That's it. Mm-hmm. When I'm doing something for the pleasure of Krishna, that's love.
So we have to be transcendental to experience that. We have to be in the mode, in a transcendental state to really.
Yes and no. We can experience that through the mercy of those transcendental persons who are letting us participate in their love. It's very difficult for us to come to that stage where I don't want anything except prema bhakti, and I don't have any material desire. I'll just sit and, chant, read, fully absorbed 24/7, like, Srila Prabhupada, Rupa Goswami, these personalities. We're not on that level, but we have the opportunity to participate in their world by engaging in their service. And in that way, we feel Krishna's love, the real love. We can feel it. And we actually have the ability to give it when we serve like that. And that's the beauty of it, is that when you are serving Prabhupada, when your desire is to serve Krishna and to give people Krishna, because you're feeling the love of your spiritual master. And now I'm going to give, I have nothing I want from you except I want to make you a devotee. When that's your consciousness, then even though you may not be aware of it, you're transmitting that pure love. And I actually, sometimes when I'm chanting my Gayatri mantra, thinking of Guru Gayatri, thinking, meditating the meaning of this mantra, is thinking about my own spiritual master and just thinking how the benevolence that I think, people feel around elevated souls is coming from the fact that they simply want to give you Krishna. And that's this, it's the common, not putting my spiritual master above anybody else's. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that what I hear commonly said about my spiritual master is very loving person. It's the most common word in regards to him, very full of love. And I was thinking, I've lived with him for a year, and so I've seen, him in a sense, live his normal life, what would appear normal. So what is the love that people feel is that there's no ulterior motive. I want you to be a devotee of Krishna. I want you to be a better devotee of Krishna than I am. And that's the real, glory of it, is that I have no envy. That's what amazes me about these spiritual personalities, is there's no sense of like if there's a devotee that's seemingly doing more, there's no sense of I got to put them down. It's just, they're wonderful. I'm so satisfied in myself, and that's because I know Krishna loves me, and I'm fully just dedicated to giving Krishna. I was speaking with my guru once, and he told me, he said, "You are my job." He's speaking to a group of disciples. He said, "You're my job, you're my hobby, you're my service, and you're my love." And I thought that was very sweet. And when we have that desire to serve Krishna and to give Krishna to others, then we'll find that love is reflecting off of us. And that's the real love, not that I'm affected by the mode of passion and I think that I'm in love, but actually I'm not. And we see how it ends every time. We see it. And so there are examples where, two people in whatever circumstance, mother, child, husband, wife, guru, disciple, whatever, they can have real love with each other if and only to the degree that they are dedicated to helping each other in Krishna consciousness and making Krishna the goal of life. But it's, and one thing is important to understand, it's easier said than done. It's definitely easier said than done because we're conditioned souls. So if we think it's going to be easy, then we should, take a step back and realize, let me elevate myself very nicely and become a solid person. And then if that person's a solid person, then there can be genuine love. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you for a nice class. I just had a couple of quick thoughts, maybe. Thank you. One was I was thinking in a material world position, when do we ever see someone not want that position? Normally we see, scratching, stomping to get up that pyramid of power, so I found that notable. Another one was I was thinking, like I'm sure all of us can relate to, I was thinking about the challenges in my life and, who I might end up around, where I might end up. And of course, I'm a fearful person. I'm not a fearless person, obviously, but I've had that sense of thinking, well, I just want to try to come closer to Krishna and try to help other people come close to Krishna. And when I think about that, I think it'll be somewhat okay. Yeah. Wherever I end up, and it feels good. Thank you, Prabhu. Nice point. Important point that the devotees, they don't want power. It's an amazing thing about devotees. They're not into the power. Second point that you made is, I was thinking this morning similarly that yesterday I was on books and I was feeling really fried out after the Krishna Cove, just tired. And I was thinking, about all these things, when you feel tired, then all the kind of the Maya decides he's going to come into your mind easier. And I woke up and I, okay, here we do. Another opportunity, put on my Prabhupada lecture, shower early in the morning. And I was chanting my japa. And I was thinking about certain circumstances in my life that have been like years in the making, like some mental train that started years ago. And I was thinking, there's things going on in my life right now where I feel like this is Krishna's arrangement to like make me suffer, which I'm okay with. But I was thinking, it's amazing because Krishna's Maya Dakshena Prakriti Suyuti Sacharacharam Hetunanena Konteya Jagat Vipavartate. He's in control of everything. And so it's like amazing to think like, this is Krishna, this suffering I'm facing, this challenge I'm facing, this unmet material desire I'm facing. This is Krishna. And Krishna arranged this. And Krishna is doing this Suridam Sarabhutanam. He's my friend and he's doing this for me. And when you realize that, when you realize Krishna is the author of all good things, Krishna is the author of all wonderful, and the Krishna conscious story has a good ending every time. It always ends well. And so when you find yourself in literally the darkest darkness imaginable, like it's the darkest it can get, when you find yourself there, remember that how you got there right from the beginning, Krishna's been writing this story. And then if you just stay on Krishna's story and remember that this is all coming to him, that everything is concluded in him, everything is resolved in him, then we can find hope. And I just felt this immense sense of hope kind of come across me this morning, thinking, oh, Krishna, this is you. Like, this is you purifying me. You're actually taking the time to do this, to actually make me face this nonsense in my heart. And it's like, you're so kind, but it hurts so bad. But like, you see how sometimes, Krishna started this years and years ago, and he's been building it up. And now you're like, oh, this was you the whole time. So we think like that, Krishna's in charge. And if we have that, I'm going to serve Krishna, we don't give up. If we have that bhajate mama nanyabhak, then, you can't imagine I thought of that Bible verse, and just these things all just come to me in japa. It's not like I'm thinking, not distracted, but they're just in my mind. Krishna's putting them in my mind. Bible verse where St. Paul says, no one has seen or heard the things that God has in store for those who love him. And so I thought like that, yeah. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing. It's nice. And I was just echoing one thing you said nicely quickly. I read a quote from Radhanath Swami that said, our advancement
in devotional service is by how much we appreciate another's devotional service,
Yeah.
even if it's better than ours. And it just reminds me of what we were talking about with lust. And it's so easy to be envious. We take it from the material world to the spiritual activities and then
Yeah.
try to purify it.
I was in a class with Radhanath Swami, one of the few classes I've attended and been in personally with Radhanath Swami's classes, and he said that. So I'm wondering if that was the class, but it was at Sadhu Sangha. He said the activities of a devotee are that he appreciates other devotees. That's like the main symptom of a devotee. And not so easy. You know, the envy and the anger and the lust and the greed. Yes, Prabhu.
I just, I'm a firm believer, and even though I might forget it from time to time, in the, that saying that all things work together for the greater good, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's hard to remember that sometimes when you're really going through those things where like Krishna's like showing you just how gross you are, but I try to remember that.
I remember this is when I was going through my and actually I know it's getting late, but I'll just share this. It's nice that in regards to what I was already sharing, when I went through what I call my dark night of the soul, my worst period of life, I feel that I can't get any lower than that. It was so dark. And at that time I started becoming a devotee, and I remember I started chanting. And I just remember thinking about what I had lost and what I was missing, and thinking, I started to cry, really cry, like a lot, like uncontrollably crying. And I started saying, Krishna, you're so kind. Because I knew that Krishna was taking something away from me that I was attached to, and that was just hurting me like anything. And Krishna kindly took it away. He was so kind. And I remember thinking like that. And then this morning, I was remembering that and thinking, it can't get that bad. Like I already overcame, not me, but by Krishna's grace, I already overcame something so much worse than this, so much worse. And so this is nothing. And my mindset became like, really determined and powerful. Like, all right, we can do this. We did it once. We'll do it again by Krishna's grace. So,
Cast the print.
yeah. Daiviheshu gunamayi mama maya dharatya mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. This material ocean is impossible to cross beyond, but for one who's surrendered unto me, he can easily cross beyond it. And that's what I was thinking too, is like, if we surrender to Krishna, we can cross beyond it. But it's not easy to surrender to Krishna all the time, but we do. Hare Krishna. Okay, I'll go to Prabhupada.
I mean, I know we've discussed this before, but I mean,